Alright, so in the previous tutorial we have seen how we can define these global error handlers and app error classes, and now let's see how to handle the errors invoked by our controller functions, right? Because in the previous sections we have covered how to handle these routes related errors like this. Similarly, the errors will be invoked at our controllers as well, right? So currently what we have done was basically we invoke a separate error for each function like this, and this is okay, this is work as we expected, but what happened is that when our service getting bigger and bigger with a whole lot of functionalities, this stuff will be repeatable, right? Because as you can see, the same thing defined in the different functions, right? So this is not quite a good practice when it comes to software engineering. So we need to avoid these sort of code repetitions, right? Otherwise our functionalities will be working correctly, but there won't be any problem. But when it comes to the engineering perspective, this is not a quite okay, right? So we need to resolve this stuff as well, right? So in software engineering, what we are trying to achieve is that code reusability and the automation as much as possible. Then we can make large scalable applications, right? So that's the main idea behind this code reusing. Okay. So what I can do is basically I can define an explicit script that handle this try catch functionality, right? Then if there is an error, it will basically pass to our global error handler middleware, and it will handle all the necessary errors. But first let's try to invoke an error. So let's say if I am going to try to create a post, and if you look at our model, we can't have a title with a minimum length of 3, right? So let's say this title is only length 1, then this must generate an error. Yeah, it generates an error by saying a title can't be smaller than 3 characters, and you can see that that error is handled over here by saying title can't be smaller than 3 characters, right? So our error handling middleware function works, and the response is also passing, but yeah, as you can see, it is not quite user friendly, right? Because if it is correctly passed to the I have mistaken, our error middleware function doesn't work correctly, right? Because if our error is passed to the middleware function, then it shouldn't generate this sort of a message. Instead of that, it must generate an error function or error response like this, right? User friendly error message needs to be there. It happens simply because we are not calling that global error handler middleware for each functions, right? So let's see how we can fix this issue. So first I will define a function, a generic function to handle this try catch functionality. So I will name this as, let's say, in the utils I will say catch async .js, right? So this shouldn't be in the error section, it should be in the utils section. Catch async. Right, so now if I look into this function, it simply consists try catch block, right? So whenever function work correctly, it will execute whatever defined in this try block, and if something goes wrong, the exception or error will be passed to this catch block. Then catch block will be handled the error, right? So you can see the template for this function is basically try and catch, right? So try is the function and catch is the error handler. So I can define the function template like that, catch async function, and it will return a function for me as a middleware function, because I'm going to call our error handler middleware as well. And in the try block, it should execute whatever defined as a function over here. So what we are going to do is basically we are passing a function pointer to this catch async function. So catch async function will know what sort of expression it is need to be executed, right? So normally we are passing values through these parameters, but in this case we are passing a function pointer, right? So function pointer will be passed over here, and necessary request and response and next stuff will be passed as parameters to this function pointer. And if something goes wrong, it will directly go back to the catch block. So we can define our catch block like that, and it's a promise catch, which means this function will be executed in a synchronous fashion. And if there is an error, that error will be passed to the next middleware error handler, which means next. So this next is a pointer to this error handler middleware. Okay. Yeah, so that's how this stuff happen, and this function needs to be exported, otherwise we can't use this. So exports catch async, right? Then if I go to the post controller again, and let's construct this function over here, maybe let's say catch async, and I'm gonna require let's say utils and catch async. So now instead of using this try catch block, what I can do is basically I can use this catch async as a function wrapper, right? So function wrapper is basically it's a template to this function, and it will basically automatically generate the necessary try catch blocks for us, right? So I have tested the post functionality here, so let's try this create post. Yeah, so now yeah, I will comment this entire section, and instead of using this try catch block, I will wrap the entire content with this catch async function like this, and curly bracket goes over here as well, right? And if you look at our function template, it follows this request, response and next fashion, which means whether it is existing a next middleware at the try block, it will use that point as well, right? So we need to define another parameter as next over here. Then our template function and the existing function will be mapped correctly. Right, now I can simply uncomment the stuff, and I don't need these try or catch blocks anymore, right? Because this catch async will be automatically pass an error to the global error handler middleware if there is an error, right? Right, now it seems quite okay, and let's try to invoke our function again. Yeah, not this one, create post one, right? Yes, it works. Now you can see there is a user-friendly message, right? It says it is an error, and post validation is failed, and title related error is there, and title can't be smaller than 3 characters, right? So yeah, it works nicely, and yeah, if you look at the terminal, it will invoke this error. I think yeah, it doesn't invoke through this route, so let's invoke this as well. Yeah, now there won't be any terminal errors. It will simply return a client error like this, right? So likewise, now I can refactor our post controller, because now I don't need any of these try catch blocks defined explicitly, because simply it handles via this global error handler middleware, right? So that's the power of middleware. It is very useful when it comes to backend development. Yeah, so starting from get all post, I will wrap this function like this, and I need next, and I don't need any try catch blocks explicitly, right? Then get post by id, request response next, and remove this old try catch sections, right? In create post we have done already, and in the update post similar sort of a thing happen, and this is next, and we don't need any try catch block. And in the delete, catch async and request response and next, and I don't need a try catch block, right? So now you can see our code is pretty much small, right? It is focused into the functions that we require, right? There is no code repetition, there is no readability issues, and there is no explicit error handling, so everything handled in a more generalized fashion. So this is sort of a best practices that you can follow when it comes to software engineering, right? And you can try these responses again in order to check whether they are working correctly or not, but yeah, either way it works correctly, right? You can do that later on if you are not quite sure about that. But yeah, by theory everything should work correctly, so catch async will handle everything for us. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to show you, and in the next tutorial let's see how we can further improve these error handling stuffs, because you can see it generates error, which is quite nice, but still it is kind of not quite user friendly, right? Because it says everything whether it is a post relation error, this is related to title, and there is an error, right? So these stuff shouldn't be exposed to the client sides, because then a client will be aware of our internal implementations, right? Then hackers or any other unauthorized people may try to attack our backend sizes, which is not quite good, right? Therefore, we shouldn't show these sort of informations to the client, because it's not quite necessary for them, right? We only need to show these sort of errors to the client, right? So these are the things that we need to improve further, and yeah, let's see in the future videos, let's see how to do those stuffs as well. And yeah, thank you.